All right, Tim, thanks for joining the Liberty Ventures podcast today.
Great to be here.
So, there's a lot I want to cover with you in the limited time that we have, but the first thing I want to ask about is just what you're seeing right now in the crypto space. I know that you've done a lot of investments in Bitcoin and in new startups there, and you're really gung ho on this. So, I'm curious just for your general perspective at the end of January 2025 right now.
Well, I think this new administration is the first one in America to ever recognize the importance of Bitcoin, other cryptocurrencies, the blockchain, smart contracts, airdrops, all the interesting things that are happening out there that are going to change the whole nature of finance and economics, and it's going to make the whole world wealthier. Uh, um, it's actually bringing about 2 billion people into the world economy because now they don't have to, sign up for a bank account. They can still do business. And so that freedom uh, is now recognized by the U.S. administration for the first time. And so um, I'm very I'm actually thrilled that what they are doing. Uh, they are really encouraging entrepreneurs to continue to drive new innovation in the U.S. And that was not happening. That would people, entrepreneurs, when they would come to me and they'd say, yeah, I have to set this up in Singapore, or yeah, but I have to geofence the US, or yeah, this is a really innovative thing, but US customers can't use it. And it was a little bit, it was hamstringing US customers and making it so we were not exposed to the most innovative technologies, even though most of them were being invented here. I noticed it was the first time I live in the Silicon Valley, and so I always feel like we're the center of the technology universe, and we always get the best technologies fastest. And I was talking to these people in the administration for El Salvador, and I was jealous. They were talking about how they were using smart contracts, all the innovations they had on blockchain, all of the assets that were being stored on various blockchains, how Bitcoin's being used in day to day commerce. I was thinking, oh my God, I got to move to El Salvador. But now I think with the new administration, I feel like, hey, I think I'm going to be able to stay in America, and the innovation will continue to happen here. So that's what I'm seeing. Uh, it's great that we're getting that, um, in effect, a stamp of approval. It's something I've been proselytizing almost ever since I discovered Bitcoin back in 2011. Uh, but certainly after I lost my Bitcoin to the Mt. Gox fiasco, I had about 40,000 Bitcoin, and they all went into Mt. Gox. I'm not sure what happened. It was very fuzzy. It's usually fuzzy when there's a thief involved.
Yeah.
And and I thought that was the end of Bitcoin. I thought, oh, forget it, it's all over. But Bitcoin only dropped about 15% on the news that Mt. Gox stole all that money. And I realized this was really something important. So I dug around and looked, and I realized that, yeah, people were using it for guns and drugs and whatever, but they were also using it to pay people in Africa, to do remittances, to for corporates to pay for consultants in different parts of the world, uh, for people who were unbanked to feel banked, or to be, in effect, a part of the world economy. And I realized this is really important. And so I've been pounding and pounding and pounding, keep buying more Bitcoin, and and now it seems that the world is finally coming around, or at least the U.S. is finally coming around.
It certainly seems that way. And last year you predicted that Bitcoin could hit 250,000 by the end of 2025. Is that still your belief? Or where are you
Oh
at now?
yeah, now it looks pretty likely that we'll blow through 250,000 this year. The the prediction, though, in fact, the reason people were asking me about a prediction is because when Bitcoin was $180, I said it would be $10,000 by 2017. That was in 2014. It was $180. And they looked at me and they said, "What? What are you talking about?" And it turned out it hit $10,000 exactly about 3 years after I made that prediction, almost exactly to the day. And and we have it on CNBC, and it was or yeah, on Fox Business, and it's there, you know, proof that I predicted it and it happened.
You've
So
nailed this
then I
before.
got hubris, and then I thought I can predict anything, and Bitcoin had fallen to 4,000, and I said, okay, yeah, 250,000 in 4 years. But what I didn't realize that we were going to have unfriendly SEC, unfriendly government with the Biden administration. I think that was very unfriendly, and so while still technology marched forward and everything was moving ahead, people were starting to move outside of the U.S. to do all their innovating. And if since the U.S. wasn't recognizing it, the rest of the world was having a hard time recognizing the value. And now the U.S. recognizes it. They realize how important it is for innovation and how important it may be for the world economy. And so now I think it's going to be a really important part of our world and our world economy. So I think my $250,000 prediction, while late now, might be conservative. I mean, we might be blowing well through $250,000 this year.
Now, I love what you're saying about and agree that we're going to see a lot more entrepreneurship in the Bitcoin and crypto space in the US, given the new administration and the changing policies. But one of the things that I'm also seeing is just a renewed interest in entrepreneurship writ large in the United States. There's a sense that I'm getting that
Yes.
people are ready to start building and doing a lot more here than they have been for years.
You know, I think the U.S. had it right. Freedom and trust build are a magical basis for innovation. And that's why the Silicon Valley has been so successful, is that we've had this incredible freedom to operate. The country has trusted us with their their regulations, and then when the regulations got hot and heavy and they made it miserable for us, then people started to think, where can I go to be free to innovate? And so we have something called the Draper Innovation Index that we put out every month, and the U.S. is still marginally number one in for an innovator to go. But you know, Singapore, Switzerland, there are a number of other countries that are approaching U.S. quality for innovation, and yeah, I guess the
Well,
UK,
what are some
Canada. And now with the new administration, I think the U.S. will jump way back.
and
So
what are some of the things that you think we should be doing in the US to be even more of this hub at innovation? What are some of the changes that haven't happened that yet that you would hope for?
well, I think what they're doing, the Trump administration is doing, are a lot of them. Deregulating shrinking the size of the bureaucracy of the not of government necessarily, but of bureaucracy, because the bureaucracy, I mean, that's just more people creating more rules to limit business and and create a more difficult environment for people to try new things. In fact, I was starting to feel, I'm always thinking very openly and creatively about how this business could run and how we could market this or we could do this. And all of a sudden I was thinking, oh yeah, but I've got to deal with blank, the SEC, the FDA, the whatever. And that shouldn't happen from the inception of an idea. Regulators shouldn't really touch entrepreneurs until there is clear damage that's happened to people. While people are innovating, they need that freedom to think and to try new things. Excuse me.
Please.
So I think it's all about set very clear ground rules and make them simple. I think that taxes should be like they're talking about a 10, 20, 30 tax thing. 10% of your first $1 million, 20% of your next $5, $10 million, and 30% after that. And that's it. And no special treatment, and it's based on all income, all cash income, period. I don't understand why we need volumes and volumes of tax code, toxic tax code, that is
Toxic tax
really
code is a good way to put it.
destroying our economy, and it's putting so much friction on businesses. Why not just like 10, 20, 30? It's a graduated, simplified, flat-ish tax. Everybody's happy with that. I've noticed both Democrats and Republicans, they're all happy with it. So it seems like something that could pass. Then I think deregulating, we have regulations on top of regulations here in California. We have, they have really made it so complicated that even putting up a restaurant is brutal, because you put a wall up to protect from open wires in the wall, and they say you didn't get a permit for that. I mean, it's what the heck? Put up the wall, protect the place from fire and whatever else. And the regulators are just getting in the way all the time. And I think that needs to go away. I think it needs to be only limited to the things that are really harming people. And so I think we've got a lot to do there. And that, it's pretty clear where I want the world to be, but it's not so clear how best to get there. But I think our current administration is doing a great job to deregulate and to simplify everything. And
Well,
I think it'll be great. It's, capitalism is not perfect, but it works really well. And every country that, and people say, oh, socialism worked in Northern Europe, in Sweden. It turns out, if you run the numbers in Sweden, all of the growth years came after they created more capitalism. After they had a leader who was capitalistic, then all of a sudden the growth rates started to pick up and people became prosperous again.
shocking.
And then they went socialist and it goes flatline. And then they go, oh, we better make it a little bit more capitalist so that it comes back. So no, socialism hasn't worked anywhere, ever. It doesn't work. It's like humans are motivated by capitalism, and the motivation for socialism is have the other guy work, and I'll just live off of that, and so nobody works. In Russia, they say, yeah, we pretend to work and they pretend to pay us. It's that it just doesn't work. It doesn't. It didn't work. Doesn't work in Cuba. It doesn't. I've been to Cuba. It's a mess. There are buildings falling on top of each other. 4 buildings a day collapse in Havana, and the place used to be like so exciting. It was like Dubai or Las Vegas or wherever. It was so dynamic and so exciting, and you could tell that in 1958, Havana was the place to be. And then Castro came in, he created socialism, and the place just died. And then a perfect experiment is Korea. Korea, there's been this dividing line between North and South Korea after the war, and that it's called the demilitarized zone, the DMZ. And that line nobody crosses. It's a big wall, and it's barbed wire, and it's guards and whatever. Nobody crosses, and so it's been that way for 70 years. Well, what's happened in those 70 years? South Korea took on freedom, democracy, capitalism, open borders, free speech, freedom of religion, freedom of all that stuff. North Korea took on Marxist, Leninist, socialism, communism, dictatorship, military dictatorship. And what's happened? So, like, some people think, oh, yeah, that's socialism, that's great. And what's happened? Well, the average South Korean makes 460 times what the average North Korean makes. 460 times what the average North Korean makes. And that's when you adjust for purchasing power. And the average South Korean is now 4 inches taller than the average North Korean. And the average South Korean female is taller than the average North Korean male. This is very clear that people have been fed in South Korea. Why? Not because some government decided to feed them. It's because they created the freedom to go allow people to go make their living. And that freedom makes all the difference. So, yeah, there you go. You're a capitalism podcast. You just got my message.
Which I love the passion with which you speak about this, and I know that you talk about this frequently and advocate for it. You do a lot to advance not just your businesses and investments, but capitalism and liberty. And unfortunately, there aren't a lot of capitalists out there who are actually willing to speak out for capitalism. I'm curious why you think that is and what we can do to get more business leaders to realize they should be talking about the system in which we operate, not just individual businesses.
You know what happens is when a country gets wealthy, people, it creates a culture of envy. And that's why you see people trying to take down Jeff Bezos or take down Elon Musk or take down. We should be honoring them beyond belief. What they are doing and have done for our society is extraordinary.
Here, here.
Elon is helping save the planet or get us off of it. Bezos is making it so I can order a toothbrush and 4 hours later it shows up. I mean, these guys have done extraordinary things for us, and I bow at their feet. But other people say, why is he rich and I'm not? Well, you're still richer than you would be if there was no Amazon. You're richer than you would be. Your country is cleaner than it would be if there were no Tesla. The opportunity is so much greater because there is a SpaceX. you are better off because there is a Mark Zuckerberg, because now there's better communication around the world. You, you it's hard for people to realize what these other people, these incredible entrepreneurs, have done for them. And they see people who are rich, and then they see people who are poor, and they say, oh, and it's a big sympathetic heart, it makes perfect sense. How do we help these people who are poor? Because now we're okay. There are these rich people, there are these poor people. Why don't we get the rich people to do something for the poor people? Well, what that does is temporarily it throws fish their way, but it doesn't teach them to fish. And the other thing it does is it creates a culture of need, not a culture of opportunity, but a culture of need. So if you need more, you get more. So you say, I'm homeless, then you get the cell phone, you get the free rent, you get the whatever. If you say, I need this, people say, oh, okay, well, we'll get it for you. And then you're creating a culture of need, and that culture of need permeates society, and it's who needs it more. And then they start identifying individual people who need it more, or groups of people who need it more. And then they feel like, oh, we've got to treat them specially or whatever. That's not healthy for any society. It doesn't work in Malaysia, where the local Malaysians get special treatment. It doesn't work in Doha, what's that country called? Qatar, where the family, if you're a part of the family, you get special treatment, and if you're not, then you have to make the family own half of your business. Then the family feels like, oh, we stay dumb. We stay stupid because they have to give it to us anyway, and they're giving us this special treatment because, and so it doesn't work anywhere. It's much better to just say, hey, we're going to have simple, flat rules. Everybody plays by them. We go set the world free, let them do whatever they do. Try to educate everybody the best you can. And by the way, education works better in a free market. It does not, government education is not healthy. It has not worked. And socialistic education, where it's union driven, that has not worked at all. Free market education has. In fact, when I was growing up, California education was number one. And you kind of, as getting public education, you were thinking, oh, those poor guys who had to go to the private schools. And now it's just the other way around. The free market, there is no longer that initial excitement about how schools should be done. And now it's just drudgery, and everybody's doing exactly what the standards tell them to do or whatever. They're not innovating. I created a school, Draper University of Heroes, and it's for entrepreneurs. And we taught Bitcoin 5 years before anyone put any kind of a course of study into any of the public schools, any of the universities, anywhere. 5 years. Now, in a free market for education, that would have been instantaneous. They would have seen that, but my students had a 5-year lead. Most of them bought some Bitcoin. Some of them started Quantum, which became a $7 billion market cap company. One of them started Tron, which became even bigger. One of them put his bar mitzvah money into Bitcoin because he heard about it at my school, and all of a sudden he funded his own startup. He's gone off and done. He made a fortune. But Nobody from public school got any of that early indication. Nobody, in fact, I don't even think there are very many California public schools that even teach blockchain.
Probably
And
not right now.
even Stanford and Harvard took more than 5 years to get a blockchain course from when we first introduced it. So I think you've got to create a free market for education. You've got to allow the money to follow the student and the parents to choose the school that's right for their kids. And you've got to allow the principal to hire and fire. Maybe they only can do it between June and September. But you've got to allow the principal to hire and fire. And you've got to allow the school board to hire and fire the principal. It won't work otherwise. Otherwise, it stagnates. And schools fail. And the U.S. used to be the top education system in the world, and now we're like 30th. Now it's like Singapore and Norway and Finland, and there's so many countries that are above the U.S. in education because we've allowed them to be completely driven by teachers unions who are looking out for teachers, but they're not looking out for kids. And they're certainly not advancing our education forward.
So you just tied so many things together there, and I do want to double click into Draper University because you're talking about entrepreneurs as the heroes of society. I mean, that's even part of the name of the university. And we not only need policy changes, we need to have a cultural change to encourage entrepreneurship and for people to be excited about this. So I'm curious, what led you to start Draper University, and what are some of the key things that you really emphasize to entrepreneurs, whether they're going through the curriculum there or even just what you tend to advise them on when you're working with them?
Well, as a venture capitalist, if I'm starting a school, I got to start a school with something I know.
It's a good starting point.
And I know entrepreneurship. I mean, that's the one thing I really do know. And I know that there were a bunch of other very wise men, many venture capitalists, who said entrepreneurship can't be taught. And whenever anybody says something can't be done, all I do is I think, how would I do that? And so I did that. And I said, how would I do that? And it turns out that entrepreneurship can be taught, but it's not by teaching people about how people were entrepreneurs. It's about mindfulness and survival and interaction with people from all over the world and putting people in uncomfortable situations and training people to be good on their feet and challenging people to challenge themselves intellectually, physically, emotionally, in every way possible. And that's what we do. And the only reason we didn't want to become accredited is because the accreditation people would never understand what we do. And the reason we're not a nonprofit is because nonprofits are for the good of society, and society was kind of going in the socialist route. And this was not socialist. This is capitalist. This is freedom. This is trust. You trust people. You set them free. You build a world where people trust each other, and maybe they're trusted just because you figured out ways of proving their identity or whatever. But in any case, creating trust, building trust, setting clear rules, and setting people free to innovate, to make a living, I'm old. I have a bunch of friends that I've known all my life, and the ones who were successful and continue to work are all happy. Everything's going okay. They've figured it all out. They've got a job. Didn't matter whether they were flipping burgers at McDonald's or a plumber, entrepreneur, a venture capitalist, a failed entrepreneur, a successful entrepreneur, the idea that they're working, they've got real pride in what they do, they keep going, it's great. The ones who retired, or the ones who kind of took something on the dole, or felt like, um, you know, the world owed them something or whatever, they are not happy. They are drunks, addicted to drugs, whatever, homeless. They are not happy. And and so jobs, I think, are the most important thing. And what creates jobs? Companies create jobs. And how do you create companies? You create startups. And those startups then create jobs. And you create enough jobs and everybody's employed. And when they're all employed, they're not, you know, they don't have emotional problems. They're not going through depression or worrying about, you know, the whether somebody's yeah, they're just not going through all that, and they're proud of what they do. You know, if they're cleaning houses, they're doing a great job cleaning houses, and they like cleaning houses. If they're, you know, the president of the United States, they're the president of the United States. They're proud of it. They're doing everything they can for the country. You know, I think work is important. Serve, you know, what did Bob Dylan say? Serve somebody. You got to serve somebody. And if you're serving people, it's like, I'm an important part of this world. And if you're not, if you feel like the world owes you something, you're not serving anybody, and you are not happy. So I think it's just, you know, get to the basics, get down to the basics, go back to the, you know, cave people days, and think in terms of like everybody's got to pull their weight, even if they can't pull very much weight. It doesn't matter. They should be pulling their weight. And sure, you can have a safety net. I mean, I think that's not a bad idea. But the safety net shouldn't have all sorts of conditions on it. It should just be like, yeah, everybody's got something, and then everything they earn from there is gravy. You know, they hire people to make sure that people on welfare aren't working. You know, that's like the worst thing you could possibly do. You get somebody who's hired to make sure somebody is not working so that they can get their welfare check. The incentives have to be pure, and they all have to be simple. And the idea that, you know, you have to prove that you're a single mom so that the husband has to go hide so that you can get more money, that makes no sense either. So and I think I get the feeling that there's some common sense coming into government now. I mean, sure, look, there are a lot of issues. I supported Nikki Haley and very actively. So Trump wasn't my first choice, but I've got to say he's the man to do it right now. And there are a lot of things that he's doing where I'm thinking, oh God, you know, because I'm much more of a worldly, global thinker and less a America first thinker. But hey, somebody's got to simplify government, make life easier for all of us who are trying to make something good happen.
100%. And I just love the way that we're ending this here with you pointing out entrepreneurship, business. It's not just that that's a heroic endeavor, it's what creates happiness and purpose in people's lives. And what I'm taking away that we can share, I think, with any entrepreneur listening is keep at it. You got to remember that purpose that led you to start this in the first place, and just keep surviving in order to
Yeah.
succeed.
The other thing is, as an entrepreneur, it's very difficult to sort of separate your ego from your wallet. But if you succeed, great. Everything's fantastic. People will come take shots at you like they do taking shots at Elon Musk and Larry Ellison and whoever else. But if you're unsuccessful, just know you moved the ball forward. You pushed new technology. You tried something. You made something happen. Some customer was happier because of you. Some competitor had to fight harder to beat you. So it's a good thing. Even if you're unsuccessful, it's a good thing. At Draper University, we say, fail, and I will fail and fail again until I succeed. And that, I think, is a really good message. It's okay to go try stuff and fail. Actually, the first line of the pledge is, I will promote freedom at all costs. So I think it flies right with your podcast.
100%.
So keep up the good work. You guys send the right messages to people. Sometimes it's hard for people to think beyond, like, give me money. But I think if they instead start thinking, what can I do for you? Money will come.
Hear, hear. That is a fantastic way for us to end. Thank you for everything that you're doing, Tim, not just with this podcast, but standing up for freedom and capitalism, being an incredible capitalist yourself, and just everything that you do.
Terrific. Well, thanks, Alexander, for having me on your show.